So, Pastor Carl, when you first saw the War on America, about the video about taking God out of America, what was your first reaction to that video?
Well, I was surprised because there were things on there that I didn't know that you don't hear publicized. In particular, the new Congressional Visitor Center and how they took "In God We Trust" out of the mock-ups of the buildings and things like that. So I was really surprised at that because it's something nobody has heard, and you don't know what's going on, which is, you know, the way they do things, they don't want you to know.
You know, and that's funny you brought up the visitor center because, you know, when I was watching the video myself, I noticed that, and, you know, even the congressman made the comment saying, you know, that it's a $600 million godless pit. Was he right in saying that, or even though he's a politician, you know, should he have found a better way to talk about what they're doing by taking God out of that institution?
Well, maybe you could have found a softer way to say it, but I think, you know, he hit the nail on the head. And when you come to D.C., unless you're blunt and to the point, they don't get it. And so, you know, I think he was correct. I think, you know, it's something he doesn't need to say just in Congress. He needs to say to the American people and the public. The public needs to know. I didn't know they spent $600 million, and then they spent it leaving God completely out of our heritage and our, you know, leaving our faith out of it. So I think he was to the point, and he needs to be to the point, and he needs to be more vocal to the public.
You know, at the end of the video, they put up some phone numbers saying, you know, hey, you can call, you know, I think it was then Speaker Pelosi, now that she's out of Speaker of the House. They said call, you know, and make the American voice be heard. But as a nation, you know, really, for us here in the local church, what can we do as Christians to, you know, to sort of take a stand, I guess you could say, against this and say, hey, we need to keep this in. This is very important. Right. What can we do?
Well, I mean, you can do just what they ask you to do on the tape. You contact your congressman, you contact your senator, you can do things like that. You can let other people know. You can share the video, the YouTube video. You can share it with others and say, hey, you need to watch this. And at the end of it, you need to respond to it. The problem that I see is that, you know, our senators really, one of our senators really just doesn't care about what we think when it comes to that topic. Well, as a matter of fact, both our senators in the state of Virginia, neither one of them really cares about what we think on that topic. We've got some folks in the House of Representatives that do care and we can contact. And so, you know, you can let them know, but the only difference you're going to make is at the ballot box every November. And when you vote for congressmen, and you vote for senators and such as that, that's going to be the turning point.
Thinking back to how, you know, here in Lynchburg, who are some of those people in Lynchburg that we could contact to really try to make a difference as far as?
Well, you know, our congressman, Robert Hurt, that is from our area that we voted on last year, we can contact him. Unfortunately, our senators, Mark Warner and
Jim Webb.
Jim Webb, yeah, I was trying to remember his name. Neither one of them I've contacted. Mark Warner's been in our church. I've met him. He really is not going to listen to the Christians. And so the only way to change it is to vote him out of office. And we'll have that opportunity next year in 2012 to vote Jim Webb out of office. That's going to be how you do it. Of course, as people have other congressmen in the area, Goodlatte and others that they can contact, and on the House side to make a difference to say we want this restored. So you got to let those know that can make an impact, and those that won't listen to you, got to let them know anyway.
I know one thing I noticed in the video was that they, especially in the beginning when they started saying, you know, everywhere where God was being pulled out, instead of saying God, they're now using faith. Mm-hmm. As a Christian, you know, there's a big difference between using faith and using God. What's the significance, you know?
Well, when you use the word faith, then anybody can take it and apply it to their faith, whether it's Muslims or Buddhist or Mormons or Christians or anybody can say, you know, well, faith, I can live with that. But when you say God, then all of a sudden it begins to evoke for those people a sense of Christianity, because they know, like we know, that it was founded on Christian principles. It's supposed to be a Christian nation. So anything that says God, they're opposed to it. So it's a way of appeasing everybody. It's a way of saying, you know, being all things to all people. You use the word faith. Satisfies everybody. Nobody's offended. And I'm sorry, we need to offend folks in America again.
Since our nation, and honestly, you know, being from Virginia my whole life, you know, I know a lot of the founding fathers came from Virginia. And from the beginning, from the historical impact, God was written into the history.
Right.
Why do you feel there is a big push to pull God out?
Well, it's just the lostness of man. I mean, we have lost people all over, in Congress, in the White House, and so it's not a priority. They don't pray. They don't read scriptures. They don't look to God for wisdom, for guidance, for direction. So we can't expect them to do anything but. They're going to do what is natural to them, and that is to leave God out, just like any other lost person. Whether it's in the music field or the painting field or art or whatever, if you don't know God, then you're going to leave Him out. And I don't know if it's a determined push as much as it is. It's not a priority. We don't care about God. We don't care about Christianity. And so we're just going to highlight the achievements of man and the American spirit and what man can do, because we've done this on our own. We've achieved everything we have on our own, and God's not a part of it.
What, you know, on our currency today, every bill in the United States has "In God We Trust" on it. What would they have to do to really pull "In God We Trust" off of that as a part of this big push?
Well, it's, you know, you got to knock over the walls one brick at a time, and so it's just slowly eroding. And in one day, they'll say it's time to print new money, and when we print new money, they'll leave it out. And at that point, if it gets to that point, it won't be offensive. People won't protest, because we've sat silent as they've done all these things, and we've said nothing. And as long as we keep saying nothing, then they're just going to continue down the same path. And one day we'll pick up a dollar bill, and there won't be "In God We Trust," and people won't pay attention to it, because a majority of people one day will be lost, and they just don't care. So the whole issue, I think, comes back to the church and the impact the church is making on America. We're just not winning America to Christ. And if we're not going to win them to Christ, they're going to act like anybody else is going to act. They're lost. You can't expect a lost man to trust God, believe God, and put God "In God We Trust" on anything.
Any last comments about the video that you have that you really feel need to be addressed as an America and as people in the church that really need to say, hey, what are these people doing?
Well, I think, you know, I think one of the things that got to me was just how they're lying about the past. They're not telling the truth. Whether it's Roosevelt, and the video brought that out, that Roosevelt, you know, invoked God's blessings before D-Day and everything else. And what's aggravating is they just leave it out. And I think people need to see the video. It needs to be publicized. People need to know about it so that they can respond. And hopefully we will respond. And so, you know, that was the thing about the video. It was just the unknown. And I thought to myself, boy, am I ignorant or what? I didn't know hardly any of this was going on. And so it was revealing to see the video.
Pastor Carl, thank you so much for the time.
Glad to do it. Maybe you could have found a softer way to say it, but I think, you know, he hit the nail on the head. And when you come to D.C., unless you're blunt and to the point, they just don't get it. You can let them know, but the only difference you're going to make is at the ballot box every November. And when you vote for congressmen and you vote for senators and such as that, that's going to be the turning point. Well, it's just the lostness of man. I mean, we have lost people all over, in Congress, in the White House, as they've done all these things, and we've said nothing. And as long as we keep saying nothing, then they're just going to continue down the same path.